room and is accessible to members of the public. The consent agenda, all items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. And item C, receive and place on file all materials having a bearing on this meeting. Anybody want those three, anything there? Seeing none, Mr. McLean.
I move the items listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Your vote. And that passes 8-0. No public hearings, no resolutions, no ordinances, no. Anybody here for the public forum before we start? We have two items on the discussion reports. We'll start with a discussion on BASWA and MARS.
Yeah, I was kind of asked, obviously BASWA and MARS are very closely related to one another, so kind of lay out a little bit of history of each one, kind of how they're related, how they're different from one another. I guess we'll start with BASWA, kind of a history of BASWA. A couple important dates to remember in BASWA. So one is 1983. So prior to 1983, we had the old Beatrice landfill, and that was before regulation subtitle D that the state came out with. Basically, you didn't have to have a liner prior to 1983 on your landfill. So in 1983 then, the city purchased the Beatrice sanitary landfill and then started signing interlocal agreements to form BASWA, and you have all the lease and service agreements and maintenance agreements and all those things going forward with the county and all the other communities. And then we operate on the north side there as the Beatrice BASWA for about the last 42 years, and we had 5 different cells or phases on that landfill. So there's still the old landfill, again, pre-83 landfill still out there, and then we added on after that, post-1983 with the new requirements. And then on the south side of the area out there, just south of town, the city purchased that in 1994. And then we held on to it and opened up the C&D in 2013. So about 19 years after buying it, we finally did something and opened the C&D landfill there. And then, all right, so the next important date you got to remember in BASWA history is October of 2014. In October of 2014, after a year of debate, conversations, studying, the BASWA board made a decision to open up a landfill on the south side of the road rather than a transfer station on a 6-5 vote.
Whoa.
It was close. I mean, when you see most of our votes go, 8, 9, nothing, whatever they are, 6-5, it was pretty close. Man, we spent a year looking at that, studying it, brought in engineering firms, everything else. And then that vote was affirmed in 2019 on 8-0 vote. So in between there, we did a piggyback view of those things. So those are kind of the dates to remember on BASWA's history. So then we kind of turn and start looking at the tonnage at BASWA. So in 2004 to 2016, during that time period, BASWA averaged about 22,000 tons a year. We were one of the smallest landfills. After the decisions made to open a landfill on the south side, kind of the direction was given to start running it more like a business. We got to start finding some other revenue sources, bringing some additional tonnage. From 2017 through 2024, we're at 45,000 tons a year. So we've doubled in size really since that decision. Now, part of that is Seneca, right? We signed Seneca in 2016. They bring in just a little under 10,000 tons a year, which certainly helps, but we've been able to go out and find other carriers to bring in additional garbage into our landfill. So then the next question I'm usually asked is break-even point. Kind of where does that fall, right? Where's the amount of tons we've got to bring in to cover? So in 2008, our break-even point was $58.27 a ton that year. From 2017 to 2020, that first year, that first contract that Seneca was on, our break-even point was $25.18. So by bringing in the additional tonnage and be able to basically process twice as much tonnage with the same equipment and the same number of people, you're able to drive your cost per ton down significantly. Now, during that time period, Seneca was paying $25 plus the tipping fees, so they were paying $26.25, which is more than your break-even point. I know that's another bone of contention out there, but they were paying up and over the break-even point. during that time period. So again, since 2014, we've been able to operate essentially with the same type of equipment that's out there. Essentially, same number of employees. We've added one employee, but we've also added the compost site. So that employee spends most of the day at the compost site, does come over and help with the landfill when able to. So that's why you might say we've added half an employee out there. But we've been able to drive down the cost per ton significantly during that time period. So then that leads you into, all right, are you profitable at the landfill? Yes. All right, so when you start looking at it, they're able to pay all their liabilities every year, they're able to pay all their debts every year, and we still put away about $200,000 to $300,000 per year in our closure, post-closure fund.
I'm sorry, we put it where?
In our closure, post-closure. And you ask what that is. All right, so closure, post-closure fund is a fund that the state makes us have. So the landfill on the north side of the road is gonna close either next year or in 6 years, kind of depends on when permits expire. But at some point, we have to cap that landfill. So we'll bring in, 3 feet of dirt and put it over the entire landfill, right? That's the closure part. And then the post-closure is monitoring that for the next 30 years. And so those funds, the state wants you to put that money away to ensure that there's money there to do those activities. And so we've been putting money away into that pool, if you will, that account for years now. So that's that $200,000 to $300,000 a year. That's what you put in there.
So what is their monitoring? I mean, was it, once it's closed, the post-closure monitoring, is that a yearly event?
I would
5
assume it's
years?
quarterly.
Quarterly?
That's what we do on the Tenaya.
Water, methane gas. We have to make certain that there's no settling. We have to look for low spots, that water might be pooling up in low spots on the cap. You want to make certain that we have to maintain a certain percentage of vegetation. So we'll leave the grass up there. Every so often we go through and we stop baling it. Years ago, they were baling it every year. We quit baling it every year because it was getting thin enough that we were losing our percentage of vegetation on the cap. So we want to make certain that you don't have varmints digging holes. You want to make sure you don't have cedar trees that are growing on the cap because the root goes down through the 3 foot, goes into the garbage below. You want to, so you're maintaining a good vegetation without trees. Looking for settling. Anytime there's settling on top of the cap, we go up, we bring in dirt, we have to document it, we level it out, smooth it up. Monitoring quarterly, you have your methane gas wells all the way around the perimeter. We have to go through there and we have a vacuum device that you hook up to it. It's like it pulls air up out of the ground. And so you monitor it, make sure that you're not migrating methane through the sublayers off of the landfill itself. So there's quite a bit of stuff. And then we have contractors that come in and do our groundwater inspections as well. So.
Thank you.
So at the old gas plant, right, we cleaned that site up here a couple years ago. We still do annual monitoring down there. I mean, it's just one of those, a similar process. We have somebody go out, kind of walk the ground, make sure there aren't any trees or something be there, any roots that are being, or ruts that are out there. Also for BASWA, at the end of 2024, they were debt-free. They'd paid all their debts off. We don't have any more bonds outstanding. We don't have any more lease payments outstanding. Everything at BASWA was paid off at the end of 2024. And that was set up in preparation of building a landfill in 2025 to make sure you didn't have a bond payment that's going to get topped on top of another bond payment. All right, so then we'll turn to MARS. So MARS is BASWA's largest customer. MARS averages about 16,500 tons a year. That's what they've been averaging so far. They're about 39% of BASWA tonnage that comes across the scale. Again, we started in April of 2021. You asked me if it's been profitable. MARS has had a positive operating income in 22, 23, and 24. So yes, they've been profitable. MARS has 2 outstanding debts. They have the 2021 sanitation bonds that we issued to purchase the building and the equipment to start with, all those things. That bond runs to 2031, so it's a 10-year bond. We owe approximately $1.9 million, and the all-inclusive interest rate is 1.3%.
Pay it off early, right?
The other debt that Mars has is they purchased a truck in 2022. We owe about $116,000, and that runs through 2027. So we knew that we had to buy new equipment and start replacing equipment just based upon the number of miles they're putting on. And so we didn't have the cash in 22 to pay for it outright. So that's why we did a lease purchase in 2022, that first year, second year of operation right away, early on.
And we'll be debt-free when? I'm sorry.
2031,
31. I thought it was I thought in 29, so.
that's fire station.
Okay, yeah, okay.
That's where you're getting that
That's
answer
where I'm
from.
getting that. You're right.
All right, so in the old days, when sanitary garbage was existing, your garbage rate at your house consisted of two things. You had sanitary garbage fee, and then we had a landfill fee that we calculated per household. And it had to do with the way sanitary garbage picked up trash, and they would commingle BASWA customers and non-BASWA customers, so we couldn't just charge them as they went across the scale. We had to come up with a number. And so you added those two together, that's how you end up with your rate at home that you paid. Well, Mars now simply picks up trash, and they run across the scale, and they get charged whatever the rate is per ton across the scale. No longer does it matter if it's a city trash or county trash. It all gets put into one truck, run across the scale, and gets billed out. So that's changed a little bit there. We went to $18 for residential pickup in 2020, and we stayed there till October of 22. Then it went to $20, and that's where it's been since then for residential rates. I did look at some other communities, because it's always something people want to know where other communities pay in garbage rates. And so what I found out there was Kearney's at $17, Crete's at 21 and some change, Seward is $23.50 to $25, depending on which hauler you get in their community. Sydney was at 23, Columbus was at 24, North Platte at 24.95, Gering's at 25 and some change, McCook was at 28 and some change, North Fork was at 30, and Scottsbluff was at 52.45.
How much?
52.45.
Holy cow.
That's what I found in some other communities that were similar size to us around the state, or our neighbors. Obviously, Crete, some of those are a little closer to us.
Yeah.
So again, you go back and look at that decision in 2014. In order to build a landfill, we have to attract more tonnage to come across that scale. You've got a $13 million expansion going on out there right now. You want to try to pay that with 20,000 tons or 45,000 tons a year? I mean, there's a significant difference. And so I know that we often hear that picking up the other communities, why do we do that? Well, the thing is, for every one of those communities that we were able to go out and pick up, they help BASWA survive. If it weren't for those other communities, if it weren't for all the rural trash customers that we have out there, BASWA would either have to close up shop because they simply couldn't make their payments, or we'd have to raise the garbage rates inside Beatrice significantly if they were the only customers left. And so by being able to spread that out over a bigger range helps everybody out. I think that was the purpose of the joint agency back in, it was created in '94. I wasn't here, but I'm assuming that was part of the reasons why that was kind of designed at the time. And
I was here. It wasn't popular. We also went to citywide trash pickup.
Yep.
You didn't have to have trash pickup. But quick story, and I know it's kind of rabbit hole, but I had a lady that lived, and I'm sure she's passed now, but she called me. She lived over on May Street. She called me and she said, "I'm so glad you went citywide." She said, "My neighbor has never had trash pickup. And he waits until you have the one day a year that is free trash, and he takes it all out of his garage." I said, "Wow."
Smart guy.
Yeah. A year's worth of trash that he slides to the curb because it's the day they pick it up free.
Should have been here when we tried to go mandatory.
yeah.
That was a beauty.
Yeah.
So right now, like I said, your expansion out at BASWA with the dirt work and the buildings and the equipment and some soft costs, everything, it looks like we're going to be right around $13 million. You guys, somewhere in that ballpark. We're currently at the rating agency right now. We're waiting to hear back from them. We should hear back, I think, next week on that one. And then we're looking to issue those bonds early February. That's kind of what our game plan is right now. The dirt contractor's out there as we speak, moving dirt, getting everything set up. And then we have a pre-construction meeting, I believe, next week on the building site. So we'll get that one started as well. Imagine a lot of that will just be lead time waiting for equipment to come in, and I would expect construction probably be more around June. But
So does the old building come down, or does that stay and utilized?
the old building on the north side will stay. There's no reason to take it down at this point.
Okay. And does the compost stay where it's at?
The compost will stay where it's at. I don't believe there's any anticipations to move the compost, because it's not as easy as just moving it. I mean, there's stormwater ponds you have to move, and leachate ponds, and all the other stuff you got to move with it. That'll stay where it's at.
Thank you.
Does the grinder, is that easy to move?
The big bear,
Yeah.
that moves the,
I knew it had a name and I couldn't remember it.
brown bear, right?
Yeah. The thing that turns it, the thing that makes dirt.
You know, I've never moved it before, so I don't. Jason, is it?
Oh, yeah, it'll drive. It'll run right down the road.
Really?
It's just like one of them big sprayers that, Lightfoot, you might have used to see in Dempsters
sure.
that had the,
Yep.
it's just like one of those.
Okay.
It's just like a big snow blower.
Okay. A very big snow blower.
Big snow blower.
There you go.
So what other questions do we have? This is a
So-
good time to understand.
When you said that there used to be 2 lines on the bill for sanitary garbage and then the landfill fee, so what is about the break point now?
know there's
It's
one.
$20 for Beatrice, so how much of that is for landfill?
Let me see if I can do some math for you. Because the hard part is you got to figure out how many tons of trash do you throw out in a week, right? Because it goes across the scales tons, and then I got to try to back that into your.
Well, or
Your
I
total.
guess, or again, or just, I don't need an exact number, but about how much is everybody paying for the landfill, basically?
I would have to do some math. I don't have that
Okay,
number.
well, you don't have to do it
But-
right now, and I'm sure not going to do the math.
However, I mean, right now, in that $20 includes both a BASWA charge and a
Right.
landfill charge. And in the old days, when I think sanitary garbage was here, if I remember right, we saw typically about a $1 raise every year. But $1 was landfill BASWA, and the next year was sanitation garbage. So even though,
So in remembering, okay.
yeah, so it kind of, it might not have been $1, it might have been 50 cents, it
Yeah.
might have been 25 cents, but there typically was a charge where you get an increase that wasn't related. And so in this case, it's probably a little more complicated because on the bill, it says $20. But if we need to raise the landfill rate to help coverage based on tonnage, then that would be an increase that would go across everywhere. Whether it's a Mars customer or whether it's Seneca bringing in trash, it would be consistent all the way across the board.
And so if we had to raise rates because of landfill
Right.
for BASWA, then that would include all of the surrounding communities that we're under contract with, or no?
I believe the only caveat there might be DeWitt and there's another one I think we signed here just recently. They may have to wait till.
Odell and Crab Orchard.
We
Those
don't have
are-
we don't have Odell.
Oh,
Crab Orchard may have to wait until the following March,
Okay,
but otherwise,
didn't know
yes.
how the
When
contracts-
they're able to, they'll start coming up.
okay.
And to answer your other question, so in 2020,
Okay.
sanitary garbage was $10.30,
Okay,
and the landfill was $7.70
okay, thank you.
in 2020. That's how the
That's
breakdown
close
goes.
enough, yeah. Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Question, why is the other communities paying less for garbage than our community when we gotta drive an hour and so many miles just to go pick up their garbage, yet they're paying $3 to $4 less per household?
I think one thing you have to keep in mind is the marginal cost. We're already picking up customers out in that area. So for us then to pull into a community that is another mile or 2 miles away, the marginal cost of going picking up that community is minimal to us. And the density that population allows us to have is a benefit for us. Additionally, by picking up those communities, again, it's trash that we're bringing back to BASWA. that otherwise may not go to our BASWA landfill. There are several communities that we now pick up that otherwise have gone to other landfills. And so Mars is able to benefit by having additional customers. BASWA is able to benefit by bringing additional customers in here, and everybody's able to spread those costs out over additional customers.
So basically, you know, by your logic there, by doing this, it should keep our rates pretty stable for a long time. Because if we, you know, we're bringing in these other customers from these other towns, and they're paying less, but we get the tonnage that we need, then I don't see any reason that, you know, we should be looking at raising our rates here anywhere in the near future then, as long as we've got these towns coming in, because we've got that tonnage coming in.
You're going to have to spread those tonnage costs, but now you can spread over 45,000 tons rather than 20,000 tons a year. So you may still experience a rate increase, but it'll be significantly less than if you did not have those other partners.
Well, I guess, you know, when you talk about like DeWitt and Crab Orchard and things like that, you know, based on their contract, if we, let's say next, you know, in 6 months, we've got to raise our rates, we can raise them on everybody but them by, you know, their contracts. And that's not going to fly with a lot of people. You know, I mean, I know what we did with DeWitt to get them a 3-year contract at a set price, but it still is going to upset a lot of people. And it does anyway, you know, being that these other towns are paying less than the people in Beatrice when you have to drive out that way. And I understand we're picking up rural customers, so we don't have that much farther to go, but the trucks in town aren't, you know, driving those extra miles either. So anyway, I just want to say, you know, I've heard a lot about it. That's probably one of the biggest things that I get asked about and discussed about and cussed at and things, and anything. So.
No, go ahead.
So, just so everybody understands, this is the long game. It was the long game in '94 when we bought this thing. We're looking, you know, everybody complained about it then, and we're looking like rock stars now because we did that. So, but with that, I can appreciate Dwayne's view there. It's not an opinion though. Opinions are.
Right.
It's not an opinion. These are hard numbers. These are facts, and opinions aren't facts. They're two different things. But I thought I'd share with you guys some of the other services that we provide that we don't get paid for. And so we provide a backflow, and so I asked Tobias to help me with all this. We provide an annual backflow testing at no cost. That's something a private entity or private industry could do. We're the only city in America that provides that. We provide an EMS service to over half the county. We don't charge them any more than we charge our locals. We have our ambulance service provides interfacility transfers in southeast Nebraska. We provide the IT services to the sheriff's office, Main Street, and the housing authority. We operate our own electrical system. We could sell that off and do it privately. We operate a water system. We operate a wastewater system. We assist communities that rebuild their electrical systems after storms. We assist communities with storm debris removal. We have a jet truck. We assist all the other communities in the area with their sanitary clean out of their sewage blockages. We spray for mosquitoes in Barnston, Blue Springs, Wymore, Pickrell, Christensen Field, and Tri-County School District. We do crack sealing in Evergreen Cemetery and Covered Bridge Heights. We lease the city street sweeper to Fairbury, so they don't have to have that additional charge. We sell patching material to Barnston, Adams, and Liberty. We buy it in bulk. We sell it to them. We sell rock salt to the Homestead National Monument, SCC, and Adams, the community of Adams. We paint parking stalls in Runza, St. John's Lutheran Church, and Mom's Corner. They pay us for it. We do it for them. We sweep the parking lots of McDonald's, Sonic, Arby's, Taco John's, My Place Hotel, Twin Rivers, St. John's Lutheran Church, Exmark, and Neapco. We sell street signs to local villages as well as Whispering Pines. We loan our equipment to the surrounding communities. We supply other communities with local plumbers and materials, most recently to Adams. We buy it at our cost so they don't have that cost expenditures. We have interlibrary loans. We loan books to other libraries across the country. We deliver our books from the library to homebound and senior living facilities. and we answer all fire and burglary calls. So we can complain about what we do here and that we're offsetting the cost for these other communities, but we do all these other things for these other communities too. So if you want to complain about that, we need to complain about these. We have no problem. We don't have a single complaint with the people from these other small communities come to Beatrice and spend their money, where we generate sales tax revenue and 51% of our annual budget comes from city sales tax. We have no problem with that. But we have a problem if they're paying $1 less or $2 less for their trash, and I have a problem with that. So I just thought I'd share that with you. So, but I have the list if anybody wants to look at it later. So, thanks for the time.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
That was only a partial list, though.
Yeah, there's more.
There's more. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not paying any rent downstairs, and senior citizens not. I mean, there's a lot of other things we're doing in addition to that, but that was a hell of a good start. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for working on that, Tobias.
And if you think about it, that's been historically for a long time for the city.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
for the councils from way back.
Yeah, and
I think,
I thought about the same thing when I dropped off my Christmas tree this year. You know, there's an entity that picks that up. I don't have to pay anybody to do that. So, yeah, I should add that on the bottom of the list.
and as you read those, the other thing that came across my mind is the fact that it also shows that we are really good neighbors. And we're not afraid to help the other communities. And I think that's a strong point that we need to make sure people understand, that we're here not only to help ourselves, but to help our neighbors, and that's kind of the Nebraska way.
Yep.
And I think that goes a long ways to say a lot about, historically, the city and the city council.
Well, one other thing that we have done, we loan our city engineer out to other communities. Years ago, the first time I ever saw Rex in Plymouth doing something, and I called over and said, "What's Rex doing? City trucks here, Rex is standing here." Well, we loan our city engineer out. So, yeah, it's when I talked to Tobias about the list, and I was going over it with him, the question was, is there anything we've ever turned anybody down for? And
Right.
neither he or I could think of something. So.
Anything else?
I've been turned down for a few things I've asked.
Gary?
I just say that I haven't had anybody get mad at me over this. I haven't had a couple of people ask me, but I just haven't had anybody call me. A couple of people on the street, when I tell them how it was working, they seem pretty satisfied. So I don't see a groundswell of people in opposition to anything to do with Mars. In fact, I get compliments on our garbage system now. So I just don't see anything wrong with it.
You talk to different people than I talk to. Because that's usually the number one complaint is not Mars. I think they feel the employees are doing a great job. And I do too. They do a great job. But it's the city being in competition with other business. The city bids against other businesses for these other communities. I agree, the city steps in. Tobias just pointed out, the city painted something for my brother out by the youth stop. I think you charged him for it, but in that case, it was because he couldn't find anybody to do it. So a lot of times when the city's stepping up, it's because there's not competition out there. So that's the thing I hear the most, is the competition aspect of it, that the city is now in competition.
Well, everything I read on this list, Dana, you could hire a private contractor for. Every single one of them.
Yes, if they had a street sweeper, for example. But again, I'm just saying that I hear things from people, and again, my brother's one of them. It was an interesting holiday for a little bit. I asked a question about garbage and got an earful just about competition, mainly. How would I feel if the city decided they were going to cable individual sewers and make money on that, when there's businesses that do that? So that's where I mainly hear is the competition aspect of it, that we're putting people out of business. And I think being in business or growing up in business, that does hurt a little bit, honestly. I'm not saying it's good nor bad. I'm just saying that is some of the argument I hear.
Yeah, when they bid the garbage the last time, one of the bidders, you incorporated under a different name, they wouldn't even come and defend their bid in public. They wouldn't even come and step up to the council and defend their bid. They didn't show up. So I don't know how much of that. Some of those people I think probably just love to complain about the city. They have a axe to grind with us all the time. So, and the other one, I think they were asked to give a bid, another bidder, so the local guy could get a bid. And if you probably don't remember this, but many years ago when Don Rush had this garbage service, he left overnight, literally overnight. I don't know where the hell he went, but we had city dump trucks picking up garbage on the streets in this town until Von Bush came. And the company that had it before, the one guy complains all the time. So, and I don't think it was financially sound when we took it over anyway.
Well, I have to say, this has been a great help, though. Thank you, Tobias. I think the numbers help a lot, because then when people do ask questions, we have the answers that we can give them and say, no, they are paying more than the break-even point. I hear that a lot. You know, we are making money on each ton that comes in, and all the bills are being paid, and everything is covered. And I think having that information is really important.
It's the long game.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Really long.
And a lot of these communities reached out to us, did they, because they could get no garbage service, correct, Tobias?
Correct.
T, I just have two quick ones. So with BASWA, when Seneca came on, we went from 58 to 25 to break even. Are we close to that now?
I think right now, and just so we are clear, the 58 was in 2008.
2008, right?
And they came on in 2016. But and your break-even point for this year, I have an estimate here, so let me get you
Sorry.
an updated number. Your break-even point this year should be about $27.84.
Okay.
Pre $13 million borrowing.
Correct.
So
Yep.
we got to factor that in. that,
Absolutely.
You know, that's
Absolutely.
that break-even point goes up because of that $13 million investment.
You beat me to it. Okay. One last question. So we're putting $200-300 a year into this post-closure monitoring of the site, right? Do we have to do that forever, or does that at some point in time self-fund itself? Because that's a lot of money every single year.
So the state would like you to have all the money in that you need for closure and post-closure in the day you close the landfill, because they want to make sure there's a source of money to go back to. I don't know of any landfill that can do that, to have the amount of money that they'd like to have you in that pool there. Like I said, we have enough money to close it. Post-closure going forward, some of that would just depend. Some years it'll be next to nothing. Other years you'll have a little more dirt work that needs to be done.
Right.
It'll be more expensive. But those are things we'll have to factor in as we go forward into our needs.
So we really can't answer it, can we? Depends
No.
on what we need to do there.
Correct.
Yep, with you.
Yeah, that's one of those unfunded mandates that we get, and the reason that we ended up with that is because there used to be all these private landfills, and people walked away. People just walked away from them. It got to be too expensive to close it, to do it, and they simply just walked away. And so then the public ended up paying for it, so they put this thing in place. So, yeah.
Well, the liner probably made a little difference.
So when they did the landfill, used to be the side of the river right by the West Court Bridge, right? First and Ella, where that's concrete now. That used, when Beatrice was here, they just take their dump. Fire burned all the time. Before my time, but when we were doing this 94, they cored that there and brought the results back. You can still read some of the newsprint that they drug out of the, So that's where the dump used to be.
That's even before my time.
Yeah, it's-
You know, I guess in the last comment that I would say is that the decision to, you know, move and develop a new landfill really was to put our destiny in our own hands. And as you think about it, there's not very many landfills. And there's getting to be fewer and fewer that can afford it.
Right.
And, you know, it's really comforting should be for all of us, is that we have some facts, figures, and numbers, and some pretty smart people figuring out where we're headed with that landfill for, well, the post-closure's 30 years, so we got to put up with that. But I think the estimate was 70 years, roughly, on the new landfill. And so there is a blueprint on how to move forward and make it a responsible decision at a low cost to all the citizens. So, thank you.
Thank you for putting it on there.
Okay, one more item. As we look at the 2025 and 2026 years, I've restructured a couple of the committees, trying to put people where strengths are. Downtown Committee, still have Terry as the chair, Mike and Dana. I think they have some strengths and some vested interest as we move forward on those projects. For Dempsters, got Ted as the chair still, Dwayne and Alex. Water Park, we have Alex, Dana, Mike, and Ted. And I think Ted can serve as a pretty good historian, because I think you were there the last time.
Yep.
Another committee that may be a short-term committee is the Duck Pond, where I have Terry, Dave, and Gary. And then this has been an ad hoc committee that I would say is probably going to continue as a committee. As we look at the school sites, it's Dave, Gary, and myself. And then as we talk about Highway 77 and what might happen in 2028, another short-term committee is Ted, Mike, Dave, and actually somebody from the Board of Public Works, Dave Moran, or Bob Moran, on that committee. And I would guess that Jason and our city engineer will probably, James will be involved in that committee as well. So those are our committee assignments for this year and probably next. And then the following year, somebody else will decide what they want to do.
You going to email that to all of us?
I certainly can.
Cool, please.
Or that's the support that I get. Yes, I'll have Tobias be gracious enough to email that out to everybody. So,
Tobias, how old is the water park?
25?
Yeah, I was here. So,
I know we have 250 grand budgeted to start engineering on it this year.
yeah.
Yeah.
Marstead was the mayor, so if that helps you. It was yep, I can't tell you the day the year we built it, but it was a 2-year process. We planned it and pitched it for a year and a half, and then it went to the ballot. We paid it in three different handfuls. Keno was part of it. City, we had some that was public money and then private money. But, yep.
So the new water park is nearing 30 years, is that
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the lifespan.
the new pool, what we all know it as?
Yeah, I think we figured, and forgive me, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I think we figured this one would last 20 when we build it. So, and it's probably past that.
Much of your equipment's original.
Yeah, and I swam in it.
Every day.
I swam in it a lot this year when the Y pool was closed, and it shows. Yeah.
and
Was Riverside.
I think it goes kind of in that same vein as we try to plan ahead. We're not talking about something that's going to take place in 25 or 26 or maybe probably 27 or 28, but we know that's something that's going to have to be at least investigated, developed, and a plan. So that's why we'll move forward with that. So, all right, anything else? If not, let's close the work session, and at 7 o'clock, we will start the city council meeting.
I move the meeting be adjourned at 6:40 PM.
Second.
Your vote, please. Passes 8-0. Thank you very much.
You win this.